also have an update tonight on the death of a man whose body was found inside a barrel at Malibu Lagoon State Beach. The LA County Medical Examiner coroner says 32-year-old Javonta Murphy died from a gunshot wound to the head.
You're a lifeguard at Malibu Beach. It's a regular Monday morning until you spot something floating in the lagoon, a 55-gallon drum, sealed tight. You swim out, drag it to shore, and pry it open. Inside, a naked body, a bullet hole through the head, and a mystery that would connect this murder to one of hip-hop's biggest unsolved cases. Welcome to True Crime Malice, where we break down the stories that shake you to your core. I'm bringing you the case of Javonta Murphy, a 32-year-old father and aspiring rapper whose life ended in the most brutal way possible. Was this a mob-style hit? Or something even darker? Before we get into it, drop your city in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe, because this story is about to get wild. Let's go. Before we talk about how Javonta Murphy died, let's talk about how he lived. Javonta Marshana Murphy was 32 years old, born and raised in South Los Angeles. He grew up in a big family, 4 brothers, 2 older, 2 younger, and they were tight. But the real anchor? His grandmother. She held everyone together. When she passed, it hit Javonta hard. That's when he decided to make a change. He moved into his own apartment in Sylmar, ready to start fresh and chase his dreams. And those dreams? Music. Javonta wanted to be a rapper. He was grinding, writing lyrics, recording tracks, hoping one day he'd make it big. But he wasn't just about the music. He was dedicated to his body and mind. Lifting weights, running, staying disciplined. He wanted to be better, do better. Family meant everything to him. He was a father to a young son, and by all accounts, he took that role seriously. His son later said,
"My dad, he loved me very much. He would always play music in his car with me."
That's the kind of father Javonta was. Present, loving, trying to set an example. People who knew him described him the same way. Good kid, good person, positive energy. Patrick Nelson, a family friend who considered himself a stepfather figure, said Javonta wasn't involved in gangs. In South LA, that's not always easy. But Javonta stayed focused. He avoided the traps that caught so many others. His criminal record? Barely there. A domestic incident back in 2017, he did 45 days, took some classes, moved on. That was it. No gang ties, no drug dealing, no enemies that anyone could think of. Javonta was just a guy trying to make something of himself. A guy who loved his son, his family, and his music. A guy who wanted more out of life. But on July 27, 2023, someone decided Javonta's dreams didn't matter anymore. July 30, 2023, Malibu Lagoon State Beach. A maintenance worker is doing his usual rounds when he notices something odd floating in the shallow water near the Pacific Coast Highway Bridge. A black plastic barrel. 55 gallons. Just bobbing there like it doesn't belong. He grabs a kayak, paddles out, and drags the thing back to shore. It's heavy. Suspiciously heavy. But he doesn't open it. Maybe he thought it was trash. Maybe he didn't want to know. Either way, he leaves it on the beach and goes about his day. The next morning, July 31st, a lifeguard arrives for his shift. He spots the same barrel, but now it's back in the water. The tide must have pulled it in overnight. He swims out, hauls it back to shore, and this time he decides to open it. What he found inside would haunt him forever. A body, naked, sealed inside the drum-like cargo. The man's skin showed signs of decomposition, but not much, meaning he hadn't been dead long. The lifeguard immediately called the authorities. When the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner arrived, they confirmed what everyone feared. This was a homicide. The victim had been shot in the head. Execution style. No clothes, no ID. Just a body stuffed into a barrel and dumped like trash. The barrel itself told a story. It had markings on it, logos from a printing company, and, more importantly, a serial number. That detail would become crucial later. But at that moment, investigators were focused on one question. Who is this man? It didn't take long. Javonte Murphy, a 32 years old, from Sylmar, an aspiring rapper, a father, and a good kid. But here's the thing. Malibu Lagoon State Beach isn't some back alley in a rough neighborhood. This is one of the wealthiest areas in California. Mansions, million-dollar homes, surfers, tourists. It's the kind of place where violent crime is almost unheard of. Beachgoers were stunned. One told reporters, "This doesn't happen here. It's unthinkable." Another said they felt unsafe for the first time in years. So why Malibu? Why dump a body in one of the most visible, high-profile beaches in Los Angeles County? Because this wasn't random, this was calculated. Whoever killed Javonte wanted him gone, completely. They stripped him, sealed him in a barrel, and tried to send him out to sea. If the tide had cooperated, his body might never have been found. He would have just disappeared. But the ocean had other plans. The barrel washed back into the lagoon twice, and now the whole world knew Javonte Murphy's name. Detectives started piecing things together. The barrel, the location, the execution-style gunshot. The question wasn't just who killed him, it was why. What could a 32-year-old aspiring rapper with no gang ties and no criminal history have done to deserve this? Let's rewind to July 27, 2023, 3 days before that barrel was found. Javonte Murphy was at a park with his father, Giovanni. It was a good day. Giovanni was grilling, making barbecue.
Last time I saw him, he was playing basketball at the park. I was barbecuing. He said he gonna come back and get some barbecue from me. And I ain't seen him since.
His father didn't think much of it at first. Maybe Javonte got caught up with something, maybe he'd call later. But hours turned into days, and there was nothing. No calls, no texts, just silence. Then, on July 31, Giovanni saw the news. A body found in a barrel at Malibu Beach. The next day, he got the call. It was his son. In an interview with NBC4, Giovanni broke down, "I'm a strong black man, but this is hurtful."
I'm really hurt. My family hurt. You know, my son was, you see, he didn't deserve this. I just want justice, that's all.
For weeks, the case went cold. No arrests, no suspects, just a grieving family and a community demanding answers. Then, on October 3, 2023, authorities made their move. 2 men were arrested, Joshua Lee Simmons, 37, and Dennis Eugene Vance, 41. Both were acquaintances of Javonte, people he knew, people he trusted. Simmons was charged with murder, personal use of a firearm, and criminal threats. Vance was charged as an accessory after the fact, meaning he helped cover up the crime. Prosecutors believe Simmons pulled the trigger on July 27, the same day Javonte was last seen alive. But here's where it gets even crazier. Simmons wasn't just some random guy. He had a violent past. In 2019, he was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon for a crime that happened back in 2013. He was dangerous. And he wasn't done. On September 2, 2023, just over a month after Javonte's murder, Simmons walked into a family-owned jewelry store in El Monte and tried to rob the place. He sprayed the owner with bear repellent, thinking he'd get away with it, but the owner fought back. Hard. Simmons got beaten down, his shirt ripped off, and the whole thing was caught on camera. He fled, but not for long. When authorities connected the dots, they realized this was the same man who killed Javonte Murphy. Simmons was being held on $3.275 million bail. Vance, on the other hand, was released on a $50,000 bond. But here's the thing, prosecutors still haven't revealed the motive. Why did Simmons kill Javonte? What was the reason? They knew each other, so this wasn't random. Was it money, a dispute, something personal? The investigation is ongoing, but one thing is clear, this was premeditated, this was planned, and whoever did this thought they'd get away with it. What do you think happened? Was this personal? A setup? Drop your theories in the comments below. But there's another layer to this story, one that connects Javonta to one of the biggest murders in hip-hop history. Now here's where this case takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Javonta Murphy had a brother. His name is Jaquan Murphy, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because Jaquan was one of 5 people arrested in connection with the murder of rapper Pop Smoke. Yeah, that Pop Smoke. Let's go back to February 19, 2020. Pop Smoke was 20 years old and on top of the world. His music was blowing up. Tracks like Dior and Welcome to the Party had him on the fast track to superstardom. He was in Los Angeles, staying at a rented mansion in the Hollywood Hills, living his best life. But he made one fatal mistake. He posted on social media, a lot, and in one of those posts, he accidentally showed the address of the house he was staying in. It was right there in the background, a gift bag with the full address printed on it. He deleted the post, but it was too late. Someone had already seen it. That someone was a group of 5 people, 3 men and 2 teenagers. They used Google Maps and real estate listings to confirm the location. Then, around 4:30 in the morning, they made their move. They broke in through a second-story balcony, quiet, hooded, and armed. Inside the house was a woman named Amelia Rose. They held her at gunpoint, demanding to know where Pop Smoke was. She pointed them toward the bathroom. He was in the shower. What happened next was chaos. There was a struggles, voices, shouting, then gunshots. Pop Smoke was shot 3 times. The intruders grabbed his diamond-studded Rolex and fled. Police arrived minutes later and rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead a few hours later. 20 years old. Gone. The case shook the hip-hop world. Fans mourned, artists paid tribute, and the LAPD launched a massive investigation. On July 9, 2020, they made arrests. 5 people were taken into custody. Among them, Jaquan Murphy, Jaquan's brother. But here's the twist. Jaquan was later cleared of the Pop Smoke charges. He wasn't the shooter, he wasn't directly involved in the murder, but that didn't mean he was innocent. At the time of Javonta's death, Jaquan was awaiting trial for an entirely separate murder case in Los Angeles County. So what does this have to do with Javonta? According to law enforcement sources, there's a theory, a dark, disturbing theory. Javonta's murder may have been a retaliation killing for Pop Smoke's death. Think about it, Pop Smoke was a rising star. He had fans, he had friends, he had people who loved him, and when he was killed, someone wanted payback. But Jaquan was in custody, he was untouchable. So, they went after the next best thing. His brother. It's a theory that makes sense when you look at the brutality of Javonta's murder. This wasn't a robbery, this wasn't a random act of violence, this was personal, and the violence didn't stop there. Just days after Javonta's body was found, his cousin was shot at a peace event in South Los Angeles. A peace event. The irony is gut-wrenching. The cousin survived, but was left in critical condition. The Murphy family was being targeted, and it seemed like no one was safe. Now here's the thing. Police haven't publicly confirmed the connection between Javonta's murder and Pop Smoke's death. There's no official statement, no hard evidence linking the 2 cases. But the timing, the brutality, the fact that Javonta's brother was arrested in connection with one of hip-hop's most infamous murders, it's hard to ignore. TMZ reported that investigators were looking into the possibility of retaliation. Other outlets picked up the story. The theory spread, and while nothing has been proven, the pieces fit together in a way that's hard to dismiss. Javonta wasn't a gang member, he wasn't involved in the streets, but his brother was connected to a case that shook the entire music industry, and if someone wanted revenge, Javonta was an easy target. So was this revenge? A calculated hit to settle a score? Or something else entirely? Let's be real for a second, this wasn't gang violence. Gang violence is fast. It's loud, it's messy, you shoot, you leave, you disappear. There's no time for cleanup, no time for planning. You don't strip someone naked, stuff them in a barrel, drive them to Malibu, and dump them in the ocean. That's not how it works. This was something else entirely. This was personal. This was methodical. This was someone who had time, resources, and a plan. Think about what had to happen here. Javonta was killed, shot in the head. Then, someone stripped him completely naked. Why? To remove any identifying information. No wallet, no phone, no clothes with DNA or traces that could lead back to anyone. Then, they had to find a 55-gallon barrel, not something you just have lying around. They had to source it, transport it, and seal Javonta's body inside. And here's the thing, one person didn't do this alone. A full-grown man weighs anywhere from 150 to 200 pounds. Add the weight of the barrel itself, and you're looking at close to 250 pounds or more. You can't just toss that in the back of a car by yourself. You can't carry it down to the beach alone. This took at least 2, maybe 3 people. This was teamwork. Now let's talk about Malibu. Why dump a body there? Malibu Lagoon State Beach is one of the wealthiest areas in California. Mansions, celebrities, tourists. It's not a place where you'd expect to see a barrel floating in the water, but it's also not a place where you'd stick out, if you belonged there. Whoever did this was comfortable in that environment. They knew the area, they knew the tides, they knew that if they timed it right, that barrel would float out to sea and Javonta would disappear forever. But they miscalculated. The tide brought him back. Twice. And that's where they made their biggest mistake. Because that barrel, it has a serial number. Every 55-gallon drum manufactured in the United States has a unique serial number stamped on it. That number tracks everything. Where it was made, where it was shipped, who bought it. Detectives can trace that number back to the manufacturer, then to the retailer, then to the buyer. And if that buyer used a credit card, game over. They might think they got away with it, but that barrel is going to tell the whole story. Investigators are already working on it. They've identified markings on the barrel that suggest it came from a printing company. They're running down leads, checking purchase records, pulling transaction histories. It's only a matter of time before that serial number leads them straight to the person who bought it. And when it does, everything falls apart. Do you think this was retaliation for Pop Smoke? Or is there something deeper we don't know yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. When Giovanni Murphy found out his son was dead, his world shattered. Vanetta Smith, the mother of Javonta's son, spoke out too. He was the positive energy in the room. He was a great father. I just don't understand how this could happen. Now, there's a 10-year-old boy who has to grow up without his dad. A boy who won't hear his father's voice in the car anymore. Who won't get to see him chase his dreams or make it in the music industry. Who won't have his father there for birthdays, graduations, or life's biggest moments. That's the real tragedy here. Not just a life taken, but a future stolen. The family set up a GoFundMe to help cover funeral and memorial costs. They're struggling, grieving, trying to make sense of something that makes no sense at all. And they're not alone. South Los Angeles has been plagued by cycles of violence for decades. Retaliation, revenge, payback. It never ends. One person gets killed, so someone else gets killed. Then another. Then another. Families are destroyed, communities are traumatized, and the cycle just keeps going. Javonta's story is just one of many, but it's a story that didn't have to happen. A young man with dreams, a son, and a family who loved him gone. For what? Revenge? A grudge? Something that could have been solved another way? The pain his family is feeling right now is real, it's raw, and it's a reminder that behind every true crime story, there are real people left behind to pick up the pieces. So how do we stop this from happening again? So how do we break the cycle? First, we need to invest in communities. Real investment. Not just throwing money at problems, but creating programs that actually work. Mentorship for young people, conflict resolution training, safe spaces where kids can go instead of the streets. These things matter. They save lives. Second, we need to support people who are trying to do better. Javonta was one of those people. He wasn't in a gang, he was focused on music, fitness, and his family. But even people like him need access to resources, job training, education, counseling. When people have opportunities, they're less likely to fall into violence. Third, there has to be trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Right now, in too many neighborhoods, that trust doesn't exist. People don't talk to police because they're scared of retaliation or they don't believe anything will change. Building that trust takes transparency, accountability, and real community policing. Not just patrols, but relationships. Fourth, we need to address retaliation before it happens. Specialized units that focus on gang violence and revenge killings, witness protection programs that actually protect people, mediation efforts that step in before conflicts turn deadly. These interventions can stop the cycle before it claims another life. And here's where channels like ours come in. True crime isn't just about entertainment. It's about awareness. It's about showing the real consequences of violence and the real pain it causes. When we tell these stories the right way, we can foster empathy, spark conversations, and inspire action. Families like the Murphys need support too. Grief counseling, support groups, community healing initiatives. Losing someone to violence is traumatic, and that trauma doesn't just go away. It lingers, it spreads. Helping families heal is part of breaking the cycle. But let's be honest, none of this works unless we address the bigger picture. Poverty, lack of opportunity, historical trauma. These are the root causes of violence, and until we tackle them head-on, the cycle will continue. Change is possible, but it takes all of us, communities, law enforcement, policymakers, media, families. Everyone has a role to play. Javonta Murphy deserved better, his son deserves better, and so do the countless others caught in this cycle. Let's bring it all together. Javonta Murphy was 32 years old, a father, an aspiring rapper, a man with dreams of making it in the music industry and providing for his son. By all accounts, he was a good person, someone who stayed out of trouble, focused on self-improvement, and loved his family. But on July 27, 2023, his life was taken in one of the most brutal ways imaginable. He was shot in the head, stripped naked, sealed inside a 55-gallon barrel, and dumped in the ocean off Malibu Beach. His body was discovered days later, and the investigation that followed revealed a web of violence, possible retaliation, and unanswered questions. 2 men have been arrested, Joshua Lee Simmons and Dennis Eugene Vance. Simmons is charged with murder. Vance is charged as an accessory. Both were acquaintances of Javonta. Both are awaiting trial. But the biggest question remains, why? Was this retaliation for the murder of Pop Smoke? Was Javonta targeted because of his brother's alleged involvement in one of hip-hop's most infamous killings? Or was this something else entirely, a personal grudge, a dispute we don't even know about yet? We may never know the full truth, but what we do know is this: violence begets violence, revenge leads to more revenge, and the cycle never stops, unless we choose to break it. Javon's story isn't just about his death, it's about the life he wanted to live, the music he wanted to make, the son he wanted to raise. And now, that son has to grow up without his father. That's the real tragedy. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to True Crime Malice. We're here to tell the stories that matter, the ones that make you think, the ones that demand justice. Drop a comment below. What do you think really happened? Was this retaliation, a setup? And more importantly, how do we stop this from happening to someone else? Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and remember, every victim has a story worth telling.